By the end of this video, Photoshop will never look intimidating to you. And if it does, I'm going to give you a 100% money back guarantee. Please refer to these chapters to skip to any section of the video, and don't forget to download the practice files in the description. So what in the world is Photoshop? Photoshop is a program to edit and create images made up of pixels. I'm going to repeat that again for you. It's simply a program to edit and create images made up of pixels. Now you might ask, Unmesh, what the hell is a pixel? Well, it's a phone from Google, right? Pixel is a small box with just one color. So right here, you have one box with just one color. Right next to it, you have another box with a slightly different color. Right next to it, right here at the bottom, you have one more box with very similar color. So these boxes of similar, different, or same colors come together to create an image for you. So fascinating, isn't it? When you first open Photoshop, you see the home screen. Think of it this way. Whenever you're doing something on your phone, you swipe up from the bottom to get to home, or on an Android phone, you press the home button to get to home. Similarly, on a car infotainment system, let's say you're listening to music, there's a home button which if you press, it takes you to home. Now, what does the home have in all of these devices? Well, it gives you a bigger picture of all of the apps you have and the apps that you're working on. Similarly, in Photoshop, the home screen shows the recent projects that you're working on and your assets. So right now, I've not opened anything. So if I go here, open one of my projects on color grading, and just to give you a glimpse, this is the before, this is the after. Fantastic, isn't it? So let's say I made a little change, increased the opacity a little bit, saved it by pressing Ctrl or Command S. We're going to get to all of that later. And we closed it, okay? Now it begins to show right here. Whether I open an image, it would work the same. Save it or not, it would work the same. This time, let's simply drag and drop, and we won't even save it. Let's drag it and drop it into Photoshop. We opened it. By the way, this is my project on removing dark circles. Here's the before, here's the after, and there's a video on it if you're interested. Let's close it. I'm not even saving it. And there you go. It shows you your recent projects. You can also access your files that you have uploaded to your Creative Cloud, and Creative Cloud storage is something that you get when you buy Photoshop. And right here, if you click on your files, you will have access to it. Please ignore them. I have uploaded some of the most random stuff. If someone else has a Creative Cloud account and he or she has shared a file with you, you can click on this button to access them. I know this one is a bit scary. Now, just as on a phone, we don't actually do anything on the home screen, right? We open an app, whether to work or to satiate our addiction to scrolling memes on Instagram. Similarly, in Photoshop, you can open the Photoshop application or the place where you work by simply clicking on the Photoshop icon on the top left. Once you click on it, you move to a place where you work. In other words, it's called the workspace because it's a space where you work. Now, how do you move back to your home screen? Just as in other devices, we click on the home button. Can you find the home button right there? As you can see, it is shaped as a home. Clicking on it does what it's supposed to do. And here you have your home screen. I hope everything is crystal clear. I highly recommend that you pause the video and just practice opening Photoshop, getting to the home screen, and then clicking on the Photoshop icon, get to your workspace, and click on the home button to get back. Just this. When you open up your Photoshop workspace, which we did by clicking right here, there are lots and lots of buttons and settings, and it can be intimidating. But trust me, there are only 3 major things that you need to keep in mind. It is simple. Think of it like an artist who paints. What does he have? He has his tools like the brushes, the erasers, the pencils, chisels, and other tools like that. He has his palette where he mixes all the colors. And finally, he has his canvas where all of the work happens, where the painting goes. Similarly, in Photoshop, you have all the tools right here, like the brush tool for brushing, selection tools for selecting, and the move tool right here for moving. Again, just like an artist has palettes, bowls, where all the color mixing happens, similarly in Photoshop, you have your panels, like the layers panel, which maintains the stack of all of the elements. For example, if you want the red to be above, you can bring it on top. See, now it is on top of the green. You have your colors panel, which you use to pick the colors. Let's say I want to paint in this purple color. I pick that and I start painting. So you have all of these different panels to control different functions. And finally, we have our canvas, where all of the work and the painting goes. So right here, this is our canvas, and you can see our masterpiece. Maybe we'll sell it as an NFT for millions of dollars. Just kidding. Quick refresher again. What are the 3 major parts of Photoshop Workspace? You have your tools, number 1. panels, number 2, and number 3, canvas. Tools are the tools with which you work. Panels control different functions, and the canvas is where your next masterpiece will be created. And if you love it, you're going to do amazing, and I can guarantee that. Now, if your workspace doesn't look like mine, do not panic. It doesn't even look like the one I use either. So, to get started on the same page, simply go to Window, Workspace, and make sure you check Essentials. This, my friend, is the default workspace. Now, even now, if things are all over the place, for example, I move things here and there, completely break it up, close some of them, and this can look like a nightmare to a lot of new people. Don't worry, we'll fix our Photoshop nightmares right now, maybe. Just go to Window, Workspace. Even right now, Essentials is checked. So what we want to do is to click on this button called Reset Essentials. And this is what you should see. Now, your workspace is something that is absolutely personal to you, and your workspace might be completely different from mine, and that is absolutely fine. And that is how it should be, because it's customized to how you work and the kind of projects you work in. As you begin to learn Photoshop and understand what each panels do, you'll start to customize your workspace according to your needs. So here's how I create my personal workspace. I keep it simple, clean, and only include the things that I need. For example, I don't like my tools in one line. I like it in 2 lines for quick access. So you can click on this button. That way, they are in 2 lines. Also, I don't need any of these panels. So I drag out the entire group and simply close it. Properties, sometimes I need it, sometimes I don't, but I'm just going to keep it. I don't need adjustments. I also don't need libraries. And in Photoshop, I use actions all the time. Now, what are actions? Just know that it's a way to automate certain functions. But right here, we don't see the actions panel. So how do we bring a panel that we do not see? Just go to Window, find that panel, and click on it. For example, I was looking for the actions panel, click on that, and the actions panel show up. So I like to keep it right here attached, maybe in the same line, okay? Also for the properties, I keep it docked right here, so you can dock it. So whenever you need properties, you can click on right here and the properties will open up. So only these are the panels I mostly need: layers, channels, paths, actions, history, and properties. And these tools right here. You don't have to understand the functions of each panel right now, but absolutely feel free to use it as a starting point. Once you have created your workspace, you might want to save it. Go to Window, Workspace, and then Create New Workspace by clicking on New Workspace. I'm just going to name it Minimal. Also, you can choose whether to save the keyboard shortcuts if you had customized them, and the menus and the toolbar if you had customized them. More on that later. You don't have to worry about it right now. Click on Save. Now, when you go to Window, Workspace, you will see your minimal workspace right there. So even if you mess things up, close things down, you can go to Window, Workspace. Minimal is still checked, but you can click on Reset Minimal and it's reset to how it was. You can switch between different workspaces. You have a workspace for painting, and all of the painting panels will show up and the tools accordingly will show up. So these are the presets Adobe has created for you. And then you have a workspace for photography as well. And then if you want to switch back to the workspace you created, go to Window, Workspace, and Minimal. And there you have it. Before we move on, there are 3 more little things we need to keep in mind. The first one being the status bar. The status bar is right here at the bottom, and it gives you the status of the image. Let's say we zoom in a little more. So this 50% turns into 66.67%, which means that we are zoomed in 66.67%. Zoom in even more by pressing Ctrl or Command plus. Now we are zoomed in at 100%. Let's zoom out a few times. Now we are zoomed out at 25%. So that is the zoom level, which you also see at the Document tab right here. Right next to it, you have different parameters of the image. So right now we are looking at the document dimensions. So if you click on the arrow right here, you can choose what you're seeing. If we check document dimensions, it's simply saying that the resolution of the document is 4706 by 3137, which means that you have 4706 pixels along the width and 3137 pixels along the height. We will understand pixels and resolutions in later lessons. For now, you can also look at other properties. For example, here is a thumbnail that I've been working on, and by the way, this video is already published. If you want to take a look at the number of layers in this document, you can click on this arrow right here and choose layer count. and it shows you 19 layers and 4 groups. If I create one more layer at the top, by clicking on this button, it creates a layer. Now we have 20 layers. Another interesting one is the current tool. So right now the move tool is selected, so it shows that. So if I select any other random tool, see, the history brush is selected. Right now, the pen tool is selected. So that, my friend, is the status bar in a nutshell. It is a bar and it shows the status. That is why it's called the status bar. I usually keep it at document dimensions. It gives you an idea about how big or small the document is, what is the resolution. It always keeps it in check. The next one is the menu bar. Think of it this way. Whenever you go to a restaurant, you get the menu. You can pick whatever you want in the menu and order the waiter whatever you want. And if the chef is good, you'll get exactly what you want. Similarly, in Photoshop, you have the menu bar at the top and you can order it to carry out specific functions. For example, you want to create a new file, you go to File, New. Again, we'll take a look at it later. You want to blur the image, go to Filter, Blur, choose any one of these blurs, Gaussian blur. And there you go. You want to see the layers panel, which you just cannot see and you accidentally closed it. You will go to Window and make sure Layers is checked and it will show it right there. So the menu bar, which is at the top, is the master menu of Photoshop. It controls how Photoshop looks, how it works, and carries out different functions. The next one is the options bar, which is right over here, right below the menu bar. Now, what is the options bar? It is absolutely directly related to tools. So whatever tool you choose, for example, if we pick the brush tool, a set of options for that tool will show up in a bar. And that, my friend, is the options bar. So for the brush tool, you have these set of options. For example, controlling the brush size. So right now we have a smaller brush and right now we have a bigger brush, controlling the hardness, choosing different types of brush tips. All in all, you see the options for that tool and that is why it is called the options bar, which is simply the options or the settings for a particular tool. For example, if we choose the gradient tool, we have the options for different gradients right here. We can choose different colors of gradients right here. We can reverse the gradient. So just as a refresher, whatever tool you choose, a set of options for that tool is going to show up in a bar at the top. And that, my friend, is called the options bar. But when you first opened Photoshop, it didn't look like this, right? It looked something like this. By the way, if you go to your workspace, it looked like this. So the canvas is not really going to show up unless you open anything. And this brings us to a very important part of the lesson and something you should learn first whenever you're learning any software or program. And that is the OCS of the software. Now, what is OCS? OCS is simply learning how to open a file, create a file, and save a file. By the way, don't look for it online. You probably won't find anything for OCS. I came up with it. So how do you open a file? The answer is in the question. Let me rephrase that for you. We are opening a file, right? So where do we need to go? File. And what are we doing? Opening. So click on Open. That's how you do it. Let's say you want to open this image. Click on it, select it, and click on Open. There you go. That's how to open a file. Now, is this the way I personally open files? Not most of the time, and this is the shortcut. So all you do to open a file is just find that file in your Finder or File Explorer, just drag it and drop it into Photoshop. That also opens the file. Now, when we are opening a second file with drag and drop, we have to be a little careful. Let's say I also want to open this image right here. If I simply drag it and drop it inside of Photoshop over the canvas right here, it will open as a layer on top and not as a separate document as I wanted. By the way, if this is something you wanted, drop it on the canvas. However, the right way to drop it, if you want to open it as a different document, here's how you do it. You simply drag it and drop it not on the canvas, but right here. It opens as a separate document. Now, how do we create a new file? Again, the answer is in the question. We are creating a new file. So what are we creating? A file and a new file. So simply go to New. By the way, for each function, the keyboard shortcut will be listed on the right hand side. So you can also press Ctrl N or Command N on a Mac. So click on New, and right here you have lots of presets you can choose from. You have your photo presets like the ones for landscape. If you click on View All presets, you have portraits. You have presets for art and illustration, print like A4, A5, and all of those different sizes. And you can customize the dimensions right here. Let's say we want to create a new document. Let me name it Piximperfect, and we want the width to be about 6,000 pixels, not inches. So you can choose the units right here. Click on the drop down and choose pixels, and this should be 6,000. And I want the height to be 4,000 pixels. So let's type that in. Right now, know that we are customizing our document. If you click on this preset again, it resets according to that preset. All right, let's set it to how it was. Resolution right here doesn't matter much because it's pixels per inch and we are giving our units in pixels. So inches don't come here. But again, there are certain scenarios where it's important and you don't have to worry about any of that. This is advanced stuff. We'll cover it later. For right now, let's set the width and height in pixels, and you want to make sure that the color profile is sRGB for now. More on color profile later. sRGB is a good standard to get started. Background should be white. 8-bit is fine for now. Click on create. And there you have your new document. Now, how do you save a file? This is where it gets a little tricky, but don't worry, you're going to get it absolutely 100%. So this is the Piximperfect document that we created. Let's say we paint something over it and we want to save it. So again, what are we saving? A file. And what are we doing with it? Saving. So let's go to File and Save. You can also use the shortcut Control or Command S. Now, since this is a brand new document which has not been previously saved, it does not really exist as of now. So when you choose File, Save, it creates a new document for you. So right here, you have the option to save it on the cloud. If you want to save it on your computer, click on this button. Now you can choose whatever file name you want, but it defaults to the file name that you chose when you were creating the document. So right where we went to File, New, and when we were setting up the properties, we typed in Piximperfect, right? So that is why the default here is Piximperfect already. You can of course change it to whatever you want. So I'm going to name it Test1. So right beneath it is an important setting, and that is the file format. If you click on the drop down, you have lots of file formats to choose from. You have your regular JPEG, you have your PNG, and the Photoshop document, or in other words, Photoshop document PSD file format. Now, since this image has only one layer right here, and we didn't really add additional layers, all of these options show up. However, there will be a challenge. So you can choose whatever format you want and click on Save to save it. But watch this. Let's hit cancel for now, and let's create a new layer right here by clicking on this plus icon. Here we have layer 1. Let us choose a different color by clicking right here, and then choose whatever color you want and paint on layer 1. Now we have two layers, the background layer and layer 1. Now when we go to File, Save, or press the shortcut Control or Command S and choose to save it on our computer, if you click on the file format drop-down, you don't have those options. You know why? Because file formats like JPEGs or PNGs do not support layers, and the only format that support layers show up. For example, the Photoshop document, or PSD, Photoshop document. Now, I do understand you have a lot of questions in your mind about saving it as JPEGs and other formats. Wait for it. All of them will be cleared. So when you save a document as a PSD file or any of these formats, we'll talk about it in detail in later lessons. Let's save it as PSD for now. And this is Piximperfect PSD. Let's click on Save. You want to make sure Maximize Compatibility is checked. Hit OK. Let's close it. Now, of course, your recent projects are going to show up right here, but you can also open your file directly from the folder. So this is Piximperfect PSD. Let's open that, and it opens exactly the way it was with all the layers intact. Now, once you have saved a particular file, the save function just updates it, just as with any other program. So right here, I have a composite. Let's open that. And all I want to do is to update this link right here. So I double click on the T, or the text layer, and change it. Now when I go to File and Save, the dialog box to choose the location and the format does not show up. But what it does is that it updates the current document. So let's close it. So if you reopen the same document, double click on it, and there you have it. It is now updated. Now, if you do want to create a new document and you don't want to disturb this current one, which is composite.psd, you can go to File, Save As instead of Save. Let's click on it. Now this dialog box shows up. You can set the name to Composite2, for example, and click on Save. And you continue working on Composite2. Maybe you wanted to create two versions of it, and this is one of the ways. Now you might ask, Unmesh, that is all right. Even if you go to Save As right now, You don't have all the options right here, and you don't have them. By the way, this is a change in the later versions of Photoshop, so I highly recommend that you're following along with the latest version. You don't have the formats that do not support layers or other functions of Photoshop. So what if you just wanted to create a copy of this in JPEG or PNG for social media? Let's hit cancel, go to File, and choose Save a Copy. This does not disturb the current document. You continue to work on Composite 2 that you're working on right now, and it saves the copy in whatever format you choose. So right here, automatically the name comes out to be Composite 2 Copy, and you can choose whatever format you want, even JPEG. So for now, let us choose JPEG and save it. You have the option to choose the quality, pick what you want, hit OK, and now when you open the folder, you have Composite 2 Copy.jpg. If you want to learn more and delve deep into the differences between save, save as, and save a copy, you can watch this video. These were recent changes to Photoshop. Let us do a quick refresher. When you open Photoshop, what do you see? The home screen. And when you click on the Photoshop icon, where do you go? The workspace. How do you switch between the home screen and the workspace? By clicking on the home button right here and the Photoshop icon right here. That's how you switch. Now, what are the three major things inside of a workspace? Well, you have your tools, you have your panels, and on the center stage where the work happens, where the painting goes, in other words, you have your canvas. Apart from these three major things, what are some other things we see in the workspace? At the top, we see the menu bar. These are the main controls of Photoshop. Right below it, we have the options bar. Now, who is the options bar related to? The options bar is directly related to tools. So whatever tool you choose, for example, you choose the brush tool, a set of options for the brush tool is going to show up in a bar at the top, and that bar is, my friend, called the options bar. So for example, we choose the text tool. A set of options for the text tool is going to show up. For example, the font, the alignment, the font size, so on and so forth. And at the bottom, you have the status bar. Right here, it shows the zoom percentage. So we are zoomed in at about 33%. And right here, we have the document dimensions. You can choose to see different properties. For example, if you click on the arrow and choose layer count, it's going to show the number of layers in this document, and it shows 6. And we do have 6 right here. Now it is time for us to take a look at the three major things in detail. What are the three major things again? Tools, panels, and canvas. Let's start with tools. We just learned that whatever tool we choose, the options for that tool will show up at the top, and that bar is called the options bar. Also, there are tools that are hidden inside of a group. Whenever you see a small arrow on the right corner, right button, if you click and hold, you will find other tools in that group. For example, you want to choose the blur tool. You go to the blur tool and you let go. Instead of the rectangular marquee tool, you want the elliptical marquee tool. You click and hold, you choose that. So similar tools are grouped together. Let us learn about the 4 most important tools in Photoshop, starting with the move tool. The move tool, as the name suggests, is for moving stuff. So let's say you want to move this text, choose that layer, and then you can move it however you want. Let's say you want to move this text. Choose that layer. So this is the text layer that we were choosing. By the way, right next to it is the cutout that is putting the text behind. If we didn't have the cutout, it would look like this. Don't worry about it now. For now, just choose the text. So select the T right here, and then you can move this. By the way, if you're trying to move this text and something else moves, it just means that auto select is turned on. Turn it off. We'll learn about it in a while, but for right now, just turn it off as default. Now let's say you wanted to center this text. So first of all, select that text layer, and the move tool of course has a lot of options. And where would we find it? In the options bar. So we want to center it according to the canvas. So click on the 3 dots and choose align to canvas right here. Now you have different options right here as well. So you can center it this way. You can align it to the side, the right side, center it vertically, horizontally. You have all of the different options. So I'm just going to place it right here and make sure it is centered by clicking this button. Now let's talk about auto select. So this is a brand new document. I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on this button. Let's choose a brush and let's dab once. Let's create one more layer. And this time, let's choose a different color. Like this, dab one more time. Let's create one more layer. And with a different color, like this, dab one more time. So we have layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. Now if we select the move tool, and keep in mind auto select is not checked, if layer 3, which is the blue circle, is selected, no matter what we do, no matter where we click, only that moves. If layer 2 is selected, only layer 2 moves. If layer 1 is selected, only that moves. However, if you check auto select, even if layer 1 is selected, which is the green circle, and you click on the blue circle, that automatically gets selected and that moves. If you click on layer 2 circle, that moves, automatically gets selected. Layer 1 circle, that moves. Now the problem with auto select is that when things are overlapping or too close to each other, it selects the wrong layer. And that is why I usually keep it unchecked. But when you need it, when things are very distinct, you can hold the control key on Windows or command on a Mac and auto select will be temporarily checked. So right now, if I want to do any of the auto selections, I can do it. If I let go of the control or command, auto select is not checked anymore. And finally, I want you to remember this shortcut for eternity, and that is the letter V for the move tool. You don't always go and find the move tool and select it. Use the shortcut. Yes, every tool has a shortcut. For example, you're working with the brush tool. By the way, the shortcut of the brush tool is B for brush, but move tool is not M, it's V. So press V, the move tool is selected. Now let's move to the brush tool. What is the shortcut to the brush tool? B. Shortcut to the move tool, V. So let's press B to select the brush tool. Now the brush tool, to keep it simple, is used for brushing. Let's create a new layer by clicking on this button, and with the brush, we can paint. That's something you already know. Now, along with the brush, of course, you have lots of options for the brush that show up in the options bar. So right here, you can choose the type of the brush. So there's fun ones like the charcoal brush right here. By the way, you're seeing pressure sensitive brushes, and this shape will only show up if you're using a pressure sensitive graphic tablet. If you're using a mouse, you won't see the corners around the edge. It just means that when you press softly, the brush would be smaller. If you press harder, you will have a bigger brush. And of course, you can choose whatever brush tip you want. For example, there's this charcoal one, and it paints like a charcoal. There's a splatter brush, which paints splatter like this. Now, there's one more important thing. Let us first choose the hard round brush. And let's say we want to paint in blue. By the way, you can switch between these colors, the foreground color and the background color, by pressing X. Don't worry about all of this right now. Whatever color you want to paint with, just make sure the top square has that color. You can click on it to choose whatever color you want. So right now, this is the brush size. Now, of course, you can go here and change the brush size. You can decrease it. Now, this is a smaller brush. You can increase it. Now you have a bigger brush. You can decrease the hardness. Now you have a soft brush. You can increase the hardness. You have a harder brush. But there has to be a shortcut for it, right? Yes, of course. So you can use the bracket keys, the right bracket key to increase the brush size, and the left bracket key to decrease the brush size. Also on a Windows, you can hold the Alt key and the right mouse button, click and drag to the right to increase the brush size, click and drag to the left to decrease it. If you drag it to the top, it makes it softer. Drag it to the bottom, it makes it harder. And on a Mac, you would be pressing Option and Control and then click and drag with the mouse. Now let's talk about the text tool. What is the shortcut for the move tool, by the way? V, shortcut for the brush tool. B, shortcut for the text tool. T, shortcut for the move tool, V. Just reminding you. Now the text tool is pretty simple. It's very similar to other programs like Word. So with the text tool selected, if you just click, lorem ipsum is going to show up just to show you how the text is going to look like. Now you can type whatever text you want, text. And just like other programs, you can select the text, change the font to whatever you want. You can change the size to whatever you want. So these are the different sizes. You can also type in your size. So I'm going to type in 500 px, and there we have it. If you want more properties, you can click right here. Here you can control the gap between two lines, control the gap between each letter if you increase it. There you go. There's a lot of space in there. Also, there's another way to add text is if you select the text tool, if you click and drag, you can create a text box and you can type in that text box. So I'm going to set the size to about 100. Now there's a gap between all of these lines, so we can go to this setting right here and just decrease the gap. So I'm going to set it to about 48 pixels or even more. You can also hold the Shift key and use the up and down arrow keys to increase the gap, and the text continues in this text box. You can align it to the left, to the right, it's up to you, to the center, exactly like Google Docs, Microsoft Word, Pages, or whatever you use. And if you want to modify a text, you just double click on the T of the text layer and modify it. And this is the absolute correct spelling of modify. Look it up. Now let's talk about the zoom tool. We don't need to remember the shortcut for it. There's a reason for it. By the way, what is the shortcut for the move tool? V. Brush tool? B. Text tool, T. So you have never seen me particularly select the zoom tool to zoom in. Yes, you can select the zoom tool, click and drag on the right to zoom in, click and drag on the left to zoom out. By the way, if you have scrubby zoom checked off, you cannot drag left or right. If you try to do that, it allows you to create a section, and when you let go, it zooms in to that section. So I highly recommend that you always keep this checked on. So we don't really need to go to the zoom tool. You can be on any tool, like the brush tool, the move tool. Let's go to the move tool, and all you have to remember is this shortcut. Hold the Control and spacebar. On a Mac, Command and spacebar. Click and drag on the right to zoom in. Click and drag on the left to zoom out. And when you let go, you're in the same tool that you were working on. For example, even with the selection tool, this is, by the way, the lasso tool. Zoom in, zoom out, move around. How are we moving around? If you just hold the spacebar, the tool momentarily changes to the hand tool and you can click and drag to move around. So this is how we navigate around the canvas. Hold the Control or Command and the spacebar, drag right and left to zoom in, zoom out. If you let go of the Control or Command and just keep the spacebar pressed in, you can move around. Now, once you have zoomed in, if you want to fit the image to the canvas, what do? Yes, you can zoom out and try to fit it, but there's a shortcut for it. Let's say you're zoomed in right here. You can press Control or Command 0 to fit it to the screen. Let's try one more time. We are zoomed in right here. Control or Command 0. By the way, there's another shortcut. Let's say you were removing blemishes. So I'm going to choose the spot healing brush tool. It is the simplest one. I don't use it all the time, but for simplicity, let's say we were using that to remove all of these blemishes. Now you want to move to other section of the portrait. You have zoomed in too much. You have to drag in. Now instead of doing that, you can also hold the H key, click and hold. It gives you a bird's eye view of the image. Let's say you want to zoom in right here. Once you go right here and you let go, it zooms into that area. Now it's time for us to check out panels. Why? Because it's one of those three major things. What's the first one? Tools. Second, panels. And the third one, canvas. Let's talk about panels. Now the most important panel, which you might have guessed, is the layers panel. The layers panel maintains a stack of all of your elements. For example, here is your background. Here is the black and white effect, keeping the subject in color. Here is the text. Here is some contrast. Here is a rectangle gradient at the bottom so that when the next layer, which is a text, shows up, the text needs to stand out. By the way, you also might have noticed up until now, you can turn off and on or hide and show a particular layer by clicking on the eye button. So when the eye is not showing up, that layer is turned off. And when the eye shows up, that layer shows up. So let's say we create a new layer and create a red blob on layer 1. We create one more layer, and this is a green blob. Let's create it green blob. Okay, now you can change the order of layers. You can take layer 1 at the top or layer 2 at the top. See how layers maintain a stack? Also, here's another basic function. If you decrease the opacity, it increases the transparency of that layer. The more you decrease the opacity, the more this layer, which is layer 2, green blob, becomes transparent. So right now, it's very transparent. If the opacity is at 100, it's not transparent at all. Let us talk about the most important function and a panel related to it, and that is the history panel. If the history panel doesn't show up for you, by the way, this is the one, you can go to Window and click on History just to be sure. There you go. It keeps a track of all of your steps. For example, if we create a new layer, it says we created a new layer. And if we take a brush and let's choose a color to blue and we paint one stroke, it records that. Another stroke, another stroke, another stroke. And you can use this tool to go back in steps. All right. And speaking of going back in steps, it is very essential that you understand how undo and redo works in Photoshop. So press Ctrl or Command Z or Z, however you pronounce it, to go back, and Ctrl Shift Z, Command Shift Z to go forward in steps. So the shortcut to go back is Ctrl or Command Z, and the shortcut to move forward in steps, Ctrl or Command Shift Z. Now moving on to the final one where the work happens, and that is the canvas. Let's open up 3 images in Photoshop. So I'm going to select the set of 3, open that in Photoshop. Now they show up as different tabs right here. Now these are different documents, and each document of course has a canvas. Now besides keeping them as tabs, you can also pull it out. So there you go. There you are. So you can work like this if you wish to. If you want to set them as tabs again, you would go to Window, Arrange, and again, Consolidate all to tabs. Now they're back to tabs. And finally, if you want to compare all of them, let's say you want to pick one for social media, you can go to Window, arrange, and since there are 3, we're going to choose 3 up horizontal or vertical. Let us choose the vertical one, and now we have all 3 of them side by side. By the way, if I zoom out, these ones zoom out too. And how is that happening? If you select the zoom tool, if you check zoom all the windows will be zoomed in. And if you hold the spacebar, of course this moves, but if you hold shift along with the spacebar, all of them move together. Now here's the most important tip about canvases. You want to take a look at how your image looks in different backgrounds. For example, this is a YouTube thumbnail, and YouTube in regular mode is a little off-white in color. So we want to see how this image is going to look like when uploaded as a YouTube thumbnail. So here's how you change your canvas background color. You right-click on the canvas background, and you can choose whatever color you want. For example, black, dark gray, medium gray, light gray. But if you want a custom color, first of all, right-click and set a custom color by clicking on Select Custom Color. You can set it to whatever you want. So let's say your website has a light blue background for some reason. So let us choose light blue. Hit OK. And whenever you choose custom, it will be light blue. It's going to give you an idea of how this image is going to look in your website. For YouTube, I usually set it to a little off-white. You can also pick the color from YouTube. Hit OK. And now you have the YouTube color. So this is the default. This is the black. And when you choose custom, the color will be set to whatever color you had selected when you chose select custom color. Now it is time for us to discuss one of the most important parts of Photoshop, and that is transform. And this is where it all starts. So here we have a background. I want to put a bee in it. So I have a picture of a bee with a transparent background. And again, what did we learn before? If you click and drag right here, it will open as a different document. But if you click and drag and drop over the canvas, it will be on the same document as a separate layer. Let's hit enter for now so that we can bring up transform. The way to bring up transform is pressing Ctrl or Command T. Another long way of doing that is by going to edit and then transform, and then you can choose the regular transform or different kinds of transform. For now, choose scale and it shows up. Now you can use these points to make it bigger or smaller from any of these points, but right now it maintains the aspect ratio. If you want to squish it or stretch it, you would hold the shift key, and now when you do it, you can squish it, stretch it this way, that way, whatever way you want. Once you want to apply it, hit enter or return. There you have it. Now let's press Ctrl or Command Z to get back. This is not how we wanted it to be, and that worked well. Now to rotate it, you would of course have to be on the transform zone. Again, press Ctrl or Command T. When you take the cursor outside, a bent arrow shows up. So you click and drag to rotate. There you go. Here's another trick. If you hold the shift key and then do it, it will rotate by 15 degrees. So right now it's 0, 15, 30, 45, you see that? Another important setting you should know is flipping. Once you are in Ctrl or Command T, you can right click on it and choose to flip it horizontally or vertically. Of course, we don't want that. So let's flip it again, and this is a nice flip. Also, let us not forget the anchor points. Now, what does an anchor point do? It simply anchors the graphic from that point. So if you press Ctrl or Command T, you see this point right here in the middle? That is the anchor point. If you don't see it, make sure this checkbox is checked. If it's unchecked, you won't see it. Check it, you will see it. Now you must have noticed that whenever you rotate, it rotates from that point. If you hold the Alt key or the Option key, and then when you resize, it resizes from that point. However, you can move the point. So I can move the point right here. And now when you hold the Alt key or the Option key and try to resize, it resizes from that point. You can also hold the Shift key to let go of the aspect ratios, and still it resizes from that point as an anchor. If you try to rotate it, it rotates from that point. So that is the flexibility you get with the anchor points. Now, you can hold the Alt key or the Option key and click anywhere to move the anchor point there. You can also have the anchor point outside. Now, when you rotate it, it rotates from that point. Another quick tip, you also have presets. So if you click on this one, it sets to this corner. If you click on this one, now you have this corner. Now it rotates from there. You can set it in the middle by simply clicking right here. Now it's in the middle. Now transform doesn't end there. There are so many options that you can work with, so many settings, and that calls for a whole different lesson. We are moving towards the end of the tutorial, and let's move away from all of the concepts and the hard things, and let's do a fun project. You can follow along. The project files are in the description. So here we have a subject and a new background. What we want to do is to change the background. So let's bring in the subject into Photoshop. Let's drag it and drop it right over here. Now, since we want to change the background, we have to have a new background. So let's go to our Finder or Explorer and click and drag this background on top of the canvas right here. Now the background needs to be at the back, right? So first of all, let's adjust the size. Hold the Alt key or the Option key, click and drag from one of the corners to make sure it becomes larger from the anchor point, from the middle right here. Let's make it this large, hit Enter or Return. Now the background needs to be at the back, but if we try to take it at the back, it's not going. You know why? Because the subject layer right here is locked. So how do we unlock a layer? By simply clicking on this button. Now when you try it, it goes back. How do we name a layer? Just double click on the text and type whatever you want. So I'm going to type in subject. Now we cannot see the new background. You know why? Because we already have the old background right here. By the way, to make the thumbnails bigger, right click on an empty space, click on large thumbnails. Now you have bigger ones. Now to remove the background, watch how hard Photoshop is. All you have to do is to go to properties right here. And if you scroll down, you have the option to remove the background. Just click on it. See how challenging that was? And the background is gone. And now we see through the new background. But there's still a problem with that. Here's the old background. It was blurred out. When we see the new background, it is tack sharp. So it needs to be a little blurred too. So to do anything to anything, we have to first select it. So we need to blur the new background. So make sure you select the new background. And then what is blurring? It's simply a filter. So where are we going to find it? Inside of filter. Let's go to filter, blur. And there are lots of blurs that you can try. For now, let's go to Gaussian blur. Now this is too much. You can increase or decrease the amount. For now, I'm going to set it to about 16 pixels. Hit OK. It's looking fantastic. But if you look closely, there's still a problem around the edges. The edges don't look good. You know why? The edges soak in the color or the light from the previous background. Since the previous background was too bright, it took in that color. So one of the ways to fix it is simply smudging the cutout a little bit towards the inside. So right here we have the subject image, and on the right hand side of that, this is the cutout. White are the areas which show up, black are the areas which don't show up, and that is why you don't see the original background. So these things right here are called masks, and we're gonna cover it later. But right now think of it like cutout, where white shows up and black hides. So now let's zoom in. And we have to smudge the cutout inside, and for that we have to make sure that cutout is selected, not the main layer, cutout. Now since we have to smudge it, we have to use the smudge tool right here. Strength at 50% is fine. Let's make the brush a little larger. How are we changing the brush size? Bracket keys, let's not forget it. And simply push it down. There you go, fixed. Push it down right here. Push it down right here. Right here as well, you see the edge? Just push. There you go. So easy, and it looks fantastic. Now, as we move towards the end of the lesson, I want to congratulate you because now you know more Photoshop than most people, and I'm so proud of you for taking the first step. I just hope that by now the kingdom of Photoshopia looks familiar to you and you know the lay of the land. Just as you saw, Photoshop is super easy once you understand the concepts, and I'm going to give you 2 steps to mastering Photoshop. Step 1, understand the concepts. Step 2, don't memorize the steps. Once you get the concepts, you don't ever have to think about any steps. You will do it yourself. Besides the concept, there is one ingredient to gain absolute mastery of Photoshop. And that ingredient is curiosity. To get you started with being curious, let me give you a little homework that you can play with. You will love this feature. Let's say you want to remove something from a photo. And in this photo, I'm going to remove this person right here. How do we do that? Select the Object Selection tool and make sure Object Finder is turned on. Now when you hover through it, it gives you an indication of every object. So as I hover through this lady, it highlights that. You can click on it and simply press this shortcut in the later versions of Photoshop, and that is Shift Backspace on Windows, Shift Delete on a Mac. And once you do that, there you go, it's gone. If you want to remove her, click on that. If Shift Backspace doesn't work, you can right click on it and choose Delete and Fill Selection. It also goes away. Didn't do a pretty good job, so you can select something like the lasso tool. You can make a selection of the bad areas and try to do it again, right-click on it and choose Delete and Fill Selection. Also, you can use a shortcut, but this is a nice tool to play with. If you still don't have Photoshop, check the links in the description to try it 7 days absolutely for free. The offers keep changing, so I'm going to keep it updated in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if I don't get too lazy, there will hopefully be lesson number 2, maybe. All I ask is for one favor. If you learned something from this video or any upcoming videos, and if you find someone struggling with Photoshop, please help them. We always rise by lifting others. I would like to take this moment to thank all of these nice and amazing people for supporting Piximperfect on Patreon and helping keep Piximperfect free for everybody forever. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.
Wake up, honey, I made you breakfast. Fresh coffee and bagels too. A new day is waiting for us. We got lots of fun stuff to do.